This lesson is 12.3, Area of Composite Figures, and before I get started, I want to talk about what a composite figure is. A composite figure is a shape composed of many more shapes. So the first thing we have to do when we start is we have to just review all the different formulas for the shape. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a parallelogram, a square, and a rectangle. So we all know what a square looks like. A square is 4 equal sides and 4 90-degree angles. A rectangle is a shape that has 90-degree angles and the opposite sides are congruent. A parallelogram is a shape that looks like this. Opposite sides are congruent. The angles maybe are not 90, but all of them are related because all of them have two sets of parallel lines in them. The sides, the opposite sides, are parallel. Now, the formula for all three of these things is the same. The area of the base, or the base, times the height will give you the area. And that's for all of those shapes. For a triangle, there's many types of triangles. We've talked about triangles. There's triangles look like this. There's triangles that look like this. There's triangles that look like this. And all these triangles have the same exact formula. It's base times height divided by 2, and that gives you the area. And the reason why we use base times height divided by 2 is because if you look up at the parallelogram, notice base times height is part of the parallelogram formula, but for the triangle we have to divide by 2, and the reason is because all triangles are half of a parallelogram, square, or rectangle. So if we want to find the area of it, we're going to find the area of a parallelogram that it would be, and then divide by 2 to find the area of the triangle. A trapezoid is the next thing that we're going to look at, and trapezoid looks two different ways. So a trapezoid can look like this, and a trapezoid can look like this. Now, if you remember from last year, trapezoids were kind of the odd man out, and the reason is because trapezoids are quadrilaterals, but they only have one set of parallel lines, and that makes it different from a square and rectangle and a parallelogram and a trapezoid. They're quadrilaterals, but trapezoids have one set of parallel lines, and the formula for trapezoids is the height and then base 1 plus base 2 all divided by 2. So that is the formula for trapezoid. So the h is the height, so the b1 and b2 is the base, like this is a base and this is a base, and you're going to add those together and divide by 2. And then last, we've talked about a circle before. It's pi times radius, and you're going to have to know this for today as well. So you have to know all of these different formulas to work on today's lesson. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just talk about, like I said, a composite figure made up of a shape of 2 or more figures. And to find the area of composite figures, we have to break the figure into shapes that we know, and we can use those formulas that we just talked about to help us find the area, and then we'll add them together. So if I look at this, this would be a shape, a composite figure. And if I look at this, I can see 2 shapes in there. And it's really important to be organized. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, okay, what shapes do I see in there? Well, I know I see a semicircle. Notice how I'm writing it down what I see, and I see a triangle. Okay? The next thing I like to do is I like to write out the formulas. So I know a semicircle, we've talked about this, pi times radius divided by 2. So I'm going to look at my semicircle right here, and I'm going to start to figure out what my area is there. If I know my radius is, or my diameter is 6, I know my radius is 3. So I know it's going to be 3.14 times 3 times 3, all divided by 2, and I'm going to do that on my calculator quick. Divided by 2. So that's 14.13. Okay, so this is my semicircle. Now I'm going to look at my triangle. I know it's base times height divided by 2. Now the base of a triangle is basically, and this is the hardest part of knowing what a base of a triangle is. If I go from the point all the way to the bottom, that's telling me that this line right here is the base. So the base here is 6. The height of that whole triangle is 16, and I'm going to divide by 2. 6 times 16 divided by 2 is 48. No, I'm not done yet. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 things and I'm going to add them together. And I get 62.13, and this would be millimeters, and area is always squared. We talked about that with circles. All right, so the next figure I have looks like this. And in here, I have a trapezoid. Okay, on top. I have a trapezoid on bottom. And it looks like I have a rectangle in there. Okay, so let's talk about the trapezoid on top first. I'm going to talk about this guy right here. And I know that the trapezoid is height and then base 1 plus base 2 all divided by 2. So we're going to start and we're going to plug in some numbers here. So I know that my height of this trapezoid is right here, and that's 5. Base 1, I always use my top as base 1, and that's 10. Base 2 would be here, and that's 18, all divided by 2. And I'm going to calculate that quick. So it's going to be 5 and then 10 plus 18 divided by 2, and that's 70. So for one trapezoid, I got 70. And since the bottom trapezoid is the exact same, we're going to count that as 70 also. The rectangle, if I look here, remember rectangle is base times height, and my base is 18, and 20 is my height. So 18 times 20, I think it's probably 360. So I'm going to take all these things I have circled, and I'm going to add them together, and I got 500 feet squared. So seriously, the most important part is to be a little organized in your homework, because if you're not going to know what you didn't do, or maybe you doubled something on accident, so writing things out so you can see what's going on. And I know a lot of you aren't going to like to hear that, but writing things out is the foolproof way to get your answer. So here's another one. I have in here, I can see 2 rectangles. Now there's a lot of ways that we could cut this. We could cut it like this. Some people would rather cut it like this. Some people would rather cut it like this. You can cut it however you want. I personally would rather cut it like this. That's me, because I can already tell, I can see all my dimensions for all these rectangles. So I'm going to do rectangle 1 and rectangle 2. So this is 2, I'm going to make this 1. And so I know base times height. My top one is 3 by 2, and that's 6. My bottom one is 10 by 3, and that's 30. I'm going to add them together, which this is a really simple one, and I would get 36 feet squared. So I'm going to do one more with you, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make it up. And let's say we have one that looks like this. Oh, I take that back. Let's do one that looks like this. Okay, and I'm going to say this is 10, and I'm going to say this is 8 inches. And go ahead and try to find the area of these things. Just notice I see 3 shapes in here. I see a semicircle. I see a second semicircle. And I see a rectangle. So make sure you go through and you do each of these individually and then add them together. So I'm going to make this 1 and this 2 pi times 5. Times 5 times 5 divided by 2. This would be 39.25. Okay. The other one is, this is 25.12. So I'm going to take all these things and I'm going to combine them together. And I got 144.37. I'm going to round to the nearest tenth inches squared. So, if you have any questions, please let me know. We're going to practice this for the next few days because this is something that students have a rough time with. So if you're struggling, we'll get you caught up. But I appreciate you watching my whole lesson, and I will see you in class.